We light our chalice flame today, as chalice flames are lit in our brother and sister congregations across the world. And as we light this flame, we will hear words by Bear W. Kolesqua. As we light this chalice, may our souls become its hearth. May our hearts join in one flame of bright compassion, and may our sparks create beloved community in the world. Welcome. Welcome to this place today. We gather virtually to join as best we can as community together, taking an opportunity away from the busyness of life, taking an opportunity to find space, to reflect. It's June the 21st, both the day of the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, and, far more importantly, it's Father's Day too. Father and Son. Now, both these points in the year are markers of memory, of deeper reflection, of looking back and again of looking forward. These annual times in our lives give us the grounding we sometimes need to click back into the rhythm of the year. Something that this year I certainly find helpful, as we've lost sense of many of the rhythms of our time and our year. It's to be reminded of individuality, of reliance on others, as well as the give and the take of community. The Son is the true giver of life, our connection to the greater universe, and our fathers and other father figures in our lives provide connection and influence too, in many different ways, some wonderful, some not so much. Yet each of us has our own experience, and for each of us that experience is unique. So I welcome you here today. This space is yours. I bid you welcome. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures." And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures." This is an excerpt from the very earliest Jewish scriptures, from the first chapter of the book of Genesis. Chapter 1, verse 20, to be precise. It's perhaps the grappling of early minds into how and why we exist, and why our world is teeming with diverse creatures and lives. How did it all get here? And these writings would most likely be based on a feeling, an observation, that living creatures are creations of God. They are holy, full of mystery, as we all are, unknowable, and a revelation of the divine, the unknowable. Importantly, the living creatures are viewed as the first real beings on the earth. Not mineral or plant, but flesh and blood. Now, I'd like to read now a short piece by Phillip Newell from his book, The Book of Creation. And in this section, Newell is grappling with this phrase from Genesis and how we might bring the notion of godly creatures to our lives. Newell refers to the writings of Eriugena, a 9th century Irish philosopher and poet who spent much of his time studying in France. Out of the waters of God's life come from the creatures of the earth and sea and sky. They are endowed with the five senses, says Eriugena. With the birth of creation, there is the emergence of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. The light of the sun and the whiteness of the moon can now be seen. The wind blowing through the leaves of the trees and the crashing of the ocean waves can be heard. The early morning fragrance of the earth can be smelled. Its fruits can be tasted and its textures touched. This is, of course, not just about the birth of the creatures, but about the gift of our creatureliness, and thus the creatureliness in the image in which we have been made. Eriugena says that every creature can be called a theophany. It is the manifestation of the hidden, he says, or the visibility of the invisible. This is not to say that what is shown in a creature is the essence of God, for God is essentially unknowable. Rather, what is manifested is an expression of God's essence. Nothing in creation exists in and by itself. The soul of every creature is derived from the one soul, God. Therefore, is not simply in every creature, but in the essence of every creature. At heart, creation, including our creatureliness, is a showing forth of the mystery of God. The words of John Phillip Newell. Let us come together in a time of prayer. Spirit of all lives, you hold in your heart and hands all that is good and just, as you wait for us to grab and take hold. Teach us to know when to reach and when to release, when to pray, or when simply to stand still, listening for your word. Teach us to trust that what we hear is not our imaginations, and help us to accept this. Spirit of life, guide us this day as we open the path before us, with you as our beacon, our light, our star, whose glow we must follow. Eternal Spirit, Mother, Father, ever present if only we have eyes to see, we stand in awe in the presence of the universe. In its proper time, may the mystery unfurl before us. Though fettered by our material desires, may the depths of the Spirit uphold and guide us. May the great gifts of the earth sustain us. May the universe forgive our faults and our follies, and may we in equal measure be forgiving. May we ever turn our eyes toward the light, to dispel the darkness which would engulf us. We give thanks for the bounty of the universe, which abounds with power and glory beyond our greatest imaginings. If you wish to, I welcome you to join with me in the words of the last prayer, following the words on your screen. Eternal Spirit, may we be led from death to life, from falsehood to truth. May we be led from despair to hope, from fear to trust. May we be led from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, our universe. Amen. I would like to now read a piece written, appropriately perhaps for today, by Father Thomas Merton, a very influential and contemplative writer from the mid-20th century. He was a Roman Catholic friar. And Thomas Merton wrote a lot about the monastic life, the difficulty of living such a life as truly as possible. And this is a piece from an essay on integrity, a warning for those who appear to have found the perfect spiritual life. Perfection is not something you can acquire like a hat. By walking into a place and trying on several and walking out again 10 minutes later with one on your head that fits. Yet people enter monasteries with that idea. They are eager to get the first available system fitted onto them and to spend the rest of their lives walking around with the thing on their heads. They devour books of piety indiscriminately, not stopping to consider how much of what they read applies or can be applied to their own lives. Their chief concern is to acquire as many externals as possible and to decorate their persons with the features they have so rapidly come to associate with perfection. And they walk around in clothes cut to the measure of other people and other situations. If they do this job thoroughly, their spiritual disguises are apt to be much admired. Like successful artists, they become commercial. After that, there is not much hope for them. They are good people, yes, but they're out of place. And much of their well-intentioned energy will only be wasted. They have become satisfied with their own brand of sanctity and with the perfection they have woven for themselves out of their own imagination. The words of Father Thomas Merton. We come now to our hymn for our service. Now, we've talked a lot about sensing. In our first reading, we had this idea of sensing, of hearing, of touching, of smelling, of seeing. And in our second reading, we have this point about experience, if you're finding your own experiences in life, not reading the books that everyone else does. And so our hymn picks up on this. It's played trumpet, cello, flute and harp, with words by Andrew Hill. For those of you with books at home, it is number 133 in the Purple Book. It's 133 in the Purple Book. However, the words will be on our screens.
Right
the summer solstice, or the weekend at least. I've checked the daylight hours table, and yesterday, Saturday, certainly here in Sevenoaks, had more daylight than today by about 1 second. So no matter, this is the weekend of the longest day. And although it's the longest day, one of the high points we know from experience that it's rarely the high point of summer. There are, most likely, several months yet of warmth and fine weather. Of course, how we might be able to enjoy some of this in current circumstances remains unclear, yet this is in itself a stark reminder of the greater and the steady turn of nature. Coronavirus will not stop or slow the natural cycle of the world. We can do little or nothing to slow, stop, speed up or prevent the turn of the seasons, the weather, nor the impact of the burning sun that is in fact around 93 million miles away. Now this solstice is a good time to think about the sun. It's an incredible thing. It's a dwarf star. It's a hot ball of glowing gas. It's around 4.5 billion years old. And it keeps our entire solar system in place through its gravitational fields. And the light and the heat from the sun are the most essential elements in the formation and creation of life on Earth. Quite simply, we can do nothing about the sun, and we can do nothing without it. We would not exist if the sun went out. It will one day, expected in around 6.5 billion years, so I doubt I'll see that. But for us, today, the role of the sun in the creation of the Earth, its place in the solar system, the formation of life and the continued presence of life on Earth cannot be underestimated. The sun determines our seasons, the weather, ocean currents, and life. Now at this solstice time, it's perhaps worth remembering that each of us on this planet rely on the same sun. We're all together in this one. We cannot choose it, we cannot change it, and we cannot ignore it. Yet it provides or controls many of the necessary elements of life for all of us. As Martyr Valentine said in our prayers earlier, it is a star whose glow we follow. And our sun is just one of billions of such dwarf stars in the Milky Way galaxy, at the least. Space is deep. Now in our first reading today, that piece by Phillip Newell, we heard of earlier work by Eriugena, to try and understand what makes humans special. Or all animals, in fact. And it was building from the creation myths of Genesis, in where God is said to make the world in 7 days. And Eriugena looked at the difference the creation of creatures might have made in that long trial of making light, the sun, and then onwards in the seas and everything else. And the observation that the sensual world was the unwitting realization of these creatures is an interesting one. Eriugena recognizes the birth of creatures. The creation of creatures brings the opportunity of seeing, of feeling the wind, of hearing the ocean waves, smells, tastes, textures. All of these things existed before there was anything or anyone to experience them. These marvels and these wonders of our existence, the very blocks that shape our understanding and experience of the world, are, according to Eriugena, a theophany, literally a manifestation of God, or as he put it more openly, the manifestation of the hidden. Now, putting aside the deeper theological elements for one moment, this idea that the world itself is an opportunity to experience God, or the all that is a fascinating one. There is a Celtic connection here, Celtic Christian connection to the earth, to its wonders, a reminder of the integral and integrated natures of humanity and the greater divine. And Eriugena is clear in his own mind that experiencing the life, the five senses of our existence, is not to fully know God, since to him, God is unknowable. Yet to experience the five senses is instead to experience God's essence, the building blocks of life, the wonder of the natural world. The senses shape our lives, and each of us experience them differently overall. Not only do we like or not like different smells or tastes, or perhaps see colours differently, never known that one, but far more simply, the single set of experiences we each have, the places we've eaten, the foods we've eaten, the things we've seen, the smells we notice, the words and the music we hear, are unique. We share many of them with many people, but not exactly. Our unique set of experiences help shape who we each are. Now, these individual building blocks of experience might also lead to another conclusion. We are all experiencing the same things, but collecting, reflecting, and emphasizing them in different ways. And this is a very Unitarian concept. At the heart of our Unitarian faith is the recognition of our own identity, of a freedom that draws on unique experience to create a community of purpose rather than a community of belief. Now, Ingrid Tavkar, former social responsibility officer for our movement, put it very well. She once said, "I believe each life experience is unique. Therefore, each person's understanding of the spiritual dimension has to be unique. And ultimately, we must be our own authority in matters of belief." She goes on, "Each of us is born with a unique genetic makeup that influences the development of our individual personality. Yet we do have free will, and our life experiences, our spiritual experiences, our relationship with others, where we are in time and in history, all these shape us." Now, for me, this is an essential element of who we are individually and collectively. Each of us we live a unique set of experiences. Our very individuality is what makes our community stronger. It is this very breadth of experience, of understanding, of expectation, that can hold and drive our work together for a better world. To welcome and to learn from a diversity of existence is the bedrock of our faith tradition. Now, we must, however, be careful to recognise the importance and reality of our individuality in this process. In our second reading, Thomas Merton recalls the dangers of assuming the experience of others will meet our spiritual needs. He talks of the new monks arriving at the monastery, convinced there is a ready-made spiritual system to just take on board immediately. Read the right books, say the right things. He uses the faintly damning phrase of, "They walk around in clothes cut to the measure of other people and other situations." Now, Merton is furious at this notion that we all experience the world, the real and the spiritual, in the same way. Of course we do not. Merton believes, and I as a Unitarian agree so wholeheartedly, that our spiritual life, the story of our inner connections and experiences, are unique. We must cut our own cloth in this place. We must find our own path, yet in community. This summer solstice, we are reminded that the source of all our experience is the same. The burning ball of plasma 93 million miles away is the key source of life on Earth and influences just about everything that happens here. Now in this, we might recognise the total wholeness of the universe, in which we are such a tiny part. The essence of this universe, the all that is, this mysterious, impossible, undefinable everything, and how we strangely connect within it, and how we experience it. We are connecting to something so much greater, so beyond our comprehension. As Phillip Newell put it, nothing in creation exists in and by itself. We are part of something greater, of family, of community, of the earth, of the universe, of the all that is. We each come from the same source, yet we each learn something different of this essence. And it's only by working together that we might align with the wider set of learning. By reflecting on the words and the experiences, physical and spiritual, of others, we might help bring peace to ourselves and maybe to the world. This coming together of the eternal and the personal. This moment of connection to the all that is. Playing our part, experiencing, connecting to the essence of life itself. Let us come together now in a time of stillness and of quiet. As we settle our bodies, perhaps closing our eyes, focusing on our breath. I shall say some words. I shall strike the singing bowl. We shall come together in stillness and quiet together. This stillness will be broken by music to continue our reflections. As we settle our bodies, focusing on our breath. On this summer solstice, we reflect on our part in the wholeness of this universe, of our own experiences, of how we might share our individual connections to the essence of life, to help create a better world for ourselves and for others. As we settle our bodies. Some closing words today. Spirit of life, we give thanks for your presence, for light and for love, for night and for change. Our worship is over, but our service continues. As we depart, may there be peace among us, now and forever.